Good morning. Before we get started, I just want to draw your attention to our opening hymn, which is From You I Receive, but with extra lyrics. But during the refrain, each time we repeat the refrain, I'd like to remember the sign language that we learned and practice it. So it's from you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Thank you.
We'll give it about 1 more minute for folks to get seated. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be up here with you all. My name is Heather Kistner. I am a longtime member here at Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm also on the board here at TVUUC. I welcome you this Sunday morning Wherever you are from, wherever you are going, wherever you are on your journey, and whoever you may be, we welcome you to this space, all of you. I only have a couple of announcements. If you would like more information on Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, you'll find a white piece of paper, hopefully in front of you. We do ask that you fill those out. When you came in this morning, you also were greeted by Lynn Hickson and Betty Baumgardner at our welcome table. Those are two excellent individuals should you want to ask anything about our space after the service. After the service here at TVUC, we welcome you to Fellowship Hall. That's the big space when you walked into the door. It's a large room on the right-hand side, and we love to gather there for chat, conversation, coffee, lemonade, water, big or small, young or old-ish. We welcome you to that space after. As we move forward together, we do ask that you remember that we are one another's keepers. COVID is in and amongst our conversation once again, although hopefully lightly, but we do want to put that reminder out that we are one another's keepers. So please be respectful and aware of who you're speaking with and the distance that you are from them. If they have concerns, please give them the concern that they desire. One of the best things about standing up here is that I'm become very aware of all of the beautiful noises, which are not necessarily by any means out of context or unwelcome in a TVUC space. So we welcome all of your littles and not littles and all the noises that they may have in this space. It is not a deterrent by any stretch of the imagination. And it's wonderful if you have an opportunity to see all the littles up here. I encourage you to take a look at the carpet. If you or your family are interested in our youth religious education program, we do ask that you visit the education table in the lobby. Miriam Davis is here, and also Catherine Farmer-Loya, our director of RE. They are more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And a wonderful thing about our religious education program is it is designed for you as the caregiver and also the child. They will help guide you through religious education throughout the entire life of the child. So it is a wonderful program, and it has so many opportunities for you as a complete household to be guided in religious education. One of the announcements I have, starting point will be in the Lizzie Crozier-French room at 1 p.m. this afternoon. It will not be in the sanctuary. Our Family Promise guests are no longer in the space this week, so therefore it will resume in the Lizzie Crozier-French room. The other announcement that I have, the Knox Pride Parade is Friday, October 6th at 7 p.m. We are needing a few volunteers to drive their vehicles in the parade. If you can volunteer your driving services, please contact Lynn Hickson. Lynn, can you raise your hand for us? There he is. Yeah, so please contact Lynn Hickson. Those walking in the parade must be with our group and in line by 6:30. So if you can please plan to arrive around or before 6 p.m. More information will be in the newsletter. We do have a weekly newsletter. If you find that you're not receiving that newsletter, please let myself know, or anyone really. We can have you added to that list with no problem. Is Ann Whitney here this morning? Okay. I will apologize. She did have an announcement, and I have completely misplaced it. So, and I am, if she's watching, Anne, I'm terribly sorry. I will make an effort and arrange for the announcement of that. Oh, Catherine might be my saving grace. Perfect.
It might be something different, but I do happen to know the mandala making workshop that Ann Whitney was planning to do in 2 weeks on October 1st is going to be postponed. So if you are planning to come to that, just to know it is going to come, but it's going to be a little bit later on. She's not able to do it that day, and that might have been the announcement.
Yes, teamwork at its finest. All right, so we do ask that you silence your electronic devices as we prepare for our worship service. Thank you.
Breaking the Cycles by Alexandra Blakely is a spell to end intergenerational trauma. The text is, breaking the cycles now. Ripple through to the ancient ones. Ripple through to the future ones. Healing at the root we're calling. Healing at the root of our belonging. Breaking the cycles now.
My goodness, that was beautiful. Thank you. Come into this house of worship. Come into this house of worship. Come in bringing all of who you are. Rest and quiet your weak-worn spirit, for you are here to touch again eternal springs of hope and renewal. Calm your hurried pace. For this hour, let the cares, the fretfulness, and the worry be set aside. Forgive yourself. You are so very worthy of moving on, of making new efforts, of trying again. Know that you are not alone. There is strength and caring support for you here. You will find comfort if you but ask. Look around. You are part of potential community. You can make it if you will. Make it what you will. Enter into this sanctuary. Come, let us worship together.
Let us rise and join our chalice lighting song. This is our great covenant. I invite you to join together in our opening hymn, the words of which are in your order of service. It's a familiar hymn, but we've added a couple of extra verses.
I have a story to share this morning. And the story begins with a kid named Izzy. But first, I wonder, do any of us know what season is almost here? What season? Fall or autumn, yeah. How many of us really enjoy fall when it comes? Well, Izzy really loved the fall. Izzy loved when it was time for sweaters, it was getting a little cooler. Izzy loved fall colors in the leaves. And Izzy also knew that his very favorite holiday of the year was in the fall, or almost fall this time. It is Rosh Hashanah, which is being celebrated right now. Izzy's family was Jewish, and they were going to go to their community to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. And one of the things that he really loved was a ritual called taslich. And we're going to hear what that means in a little bit. But first, Izzy was doing some thinking. Have any of us ever done some thinking? One of the practices during the high holy days in the Jewish tradition is the Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, and the Tashlich ceremony and ritual has to do with washing away or throwing away. Throwing, it means throwing away the things that we have done that we want to leave behind. But you can only throw away mistakes by writing them. And so Izzy and his family were thinking about the things that they were sorry for from the past year, and Izzy was making a list. Have any of us ever done something we were sorry for? Yeah. Izzy counted on his fingers, and he came up with 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hold up 4 fingers for me? You're gonna help me remember today, all right? Already it's clear I'm having a little trouble. Yeah, all right. Number 1, his sister, Miriam. Number 2 had to do with his mom. Number 3 had to do with their neighbor, Mrs. Owens. And number 4, he didn't even really want to think about number 4, but number 4 had to do with his best friend, Ben. All right, number 1. So he wrote down all of his things. So later that afternoon, they were walking to the temple for their Rosh Hashanah gathering, and he was walking with his mom and his sister, and he knew it was time for number 1. Can you hold up 1 finger for me? And he turned to Miriam and he said, "Hey, Miriam." Does it sound like he's feeling a little nervous? "Hey, Miriam, I'm really sorry that I drew on your face with a marker when you were asleep that one day." And Miriam said, "Oh, it was no big deal. You know, I'm sorry that I called you Big Snot." And Izzy said, "Well, that's okay. I kind of think that's funny. I don't mind being called Big Snot." Izzy felt a little better. So number 1, all right. They continued on, but as they walked, Miriam kept kind of bumping into him, so he'd kind of elbow her, and then after a while, they were really jostling each other and getting kind of rowdy, and one of them maybe kind of did a little kick. Have you ever gotten a little rowdy with somebody, maybe a family member or somebody you were friends with? And his mom turned around and said, "Kids, peace." And what did Izzy think about? Number 2. He needed to do number 2. So he said, "Oh, not that kind." So he turned to his mom. Number 2 had to do with his mom, and he said, "Mom, hey, I need to say something to you. I'm really, 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 really sorry that I lost your ring at the grocery store." And his mom said, "Oh, Izzy, thank you. That ring was pretty special to me, and I'm sad about it, but I know that it wasn't on purpose. I wish you hadn't been playing with it, but I understand." And his mom said, "You know, I need to say I'm sorry to you too," which was pretty surprising to Izzy. He wondered what she was gonna say, and she said, "You know, I'm sorry that I'm on my phone so much." Are any of us ever on our phones a lot? She said, "I'm gonna try really hard not to answer the phone when I'm playing with you, okay?" So, number 2, done. They continued on, and they got to the temple, and they had their service. And after that, they were going to head to the Tashlich ceremony, which has to do with water. And where Izzy lived was near the ocean, so they were going to go to the pier. And so everybody went out to walk together. And then he saw somebody that made him think of number 3. Does anybody remember who number 3 was? His neighbor, Mrs. Owens. You have a very good memory. I ought to get you to help me with a story sometimes. His neighbor, Mrs. Owens, and she was actually walking her dogs. Now that they were outside, she lived really close by, and she had gone to get her dogs, thought they would like to walk with her, but they were kind of big dogs. Have any of us ever known big dogs? Any of us ever seen big dogs? They were pretty excited, as dogs sometimes get. And so he was working up his courage because he felt really bad about this one. He was like, oh, Mrs. Owens. He had to tell her he was sorry that he had broken her drum when they were visiting, the one they weren't even supposed to touch. Have any of us ever broken something? So he was working up his courage because he felt really bad about it. And he said, oh, Mrs. Owens, hi, it's good to see you. And she said, oh, Izzy, I'm so glad to see you. And he said, well, have any of us ever had a hard time getting the courage to say something we felt we needed to say? He said, and he was just getting ready to do it. And then what do you think happened? Who did Mrs. Owens have with her? Big dogs. They started getting really excited. Maybe they saw something, a bunny or a squirrel, and they started pulling on her, and she was pulled away, and she said, oh, Izzy, I'm sorry, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you later. Maybe you can come visit some soon. All right, number 3, not quite done. They got to the pier, and when they were there, their rabbi, Rabbi Neil, started talking about tashlich and what it means. It means throwing, and so we throw away the things that we are sorry for. And the ritual has to do with throwing bread into the water. And so Izzy was given a piece of bread by his mom, and he went and sat out at the pier, and his friend Ben came to sit next to him. What is this? Number 4. Could he do it? Maybe. So they were sitting. First, Izzy threw one crumb of his bread into the water, number 1 for Miriam. Then he threw a second piece, number 2 for his mom. He threw a third piece soon, very soon he would talk to Mrs. Owens. And then the 4th. He held the bread in his hands and he said, oh, Ben, hey, I need to say something to you. And Ben said, oh, what is it? And he said, Ben, I'm really, really sorry that I told Anna that you were really bad at Foursquare. That was kind of mean. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Have any of us ever had our feelings hurt by something somebody said? Have any of us ever said something that hurt somebody's feelings? Yeah. Ben said, yeah, that felt really bad. But you know, I'm sorry that I didn't help you look for your yellow notebook when you lost it. And Izzy thought, oh yeah, you didn't help me look, did you? And then Ben said, hey, Izzy, how long have we been friends? How long do you think they had been friends? Yeah, a couple years, 16 years? Might kind of depend on how old they are, huh? 4 years? I didn't tell you. You know, Izzy said, we've been friends for a really, really long time. And Ben said, yeah, we have. We've been friends for so long. You know, you are 100% forgiven. One of the things Rabbi said when he talked about the new year and the ceremony of the tashlich is that it's like cleaning out your heart. Have any of us ever cleaned a room? Had a room that was really messy? Maybe one that needed cleaning, like right now? Does it ever feel good once you've cleaned that room and you're in that space and it's all cleaned out? Yeah. Every time he did 1, 2, 3, or 4, his heart felt a little cleaner and he felt a little better. And so he knew he was going to talk to Mrs. Owens really soon, because sometimes it takes a little longer than we want it to, right? Sometimes somebody's not ready or it's not the right time, but he knew he was doing good work cleaning out his heart and getting ready for the new year. And that is our story for this morning. And may we always be people who try to right the wrongs that we have done and repair relationship with other people. And so now, our learners and leaders are going to head to our RE spaces, those who are going, as we sing them out.
As part of our joys and concerns, I want to lift up that on Sunday, October 1st, we're going to have a Bring a Friend Sunday. My stepmother, Hugh Lane, says that Unitarians are like Episcopalians. Where we go on Sunday morning is our little secret. But this is a chance to, tell somebody where you go. Your friend might be interested in church or looking for some place for their kids to come and get religious education, or they might just be curious about you and what makes you tick and the community you belong to, or the friend may be someone of a different faith who's just interested in interfaith dialogue and doing visiting to other traditions. So October 1st, invite a friend and stay for the potluck afterwards and the adult education classes afterwards. Today we are mindful of Joy Meese and her husband Dwight Pittman as Joy made an unexpected trip to the hospital and came home with a pacemaker this week. She's feeling much better, so much so that she told friends she was planning on coming to church this morning, but wisely decided to sleep in instead. We're with thoughts and prayers are with Cindy Storm as her father, Bob Parker, was hospitalized for dehydration and experienced a subsequent stroke. We are mindful of Beverly and Bobby Clark as Beverly is home from the hospital and still has a long road of recovery ahead of her, and they're very appreciative of the outreach of the church and the thoughts and prayers. We're mindful of Barbara Taylor, who had to evacuate from Star Island, a Unitarian Universalist retreat center on a rock off the coast of New Hampshire because of the rising waters related to the tropical cyclone Lee. We're happy she got off that island safely and is with family. And Shane Smith, who is a regular attender here, got COVID this week, as did one of our volunteers as part of Family Promise. So he wanted to say, everybody be careful out there. Everybody look out for each other. Mindful of these joys and concerns which are spoken, as well as those which remain unspoken, let us send our love and light into the world. Also lift up the Reverend John Coffey, who was supposed to be here but is taking a shift for another person. He's working as a chaplain at UT Hospital now, and a friend needed a favor, and so we're happy to help him do that. 637 in the back of your hymnal is the responsive reading. It's a litany of atonement. It's an opportunity to reflect on issues of forgiving, whether it's giving or receiving forgiveness. I want you to turn in the back of your hymnal. You can say the words in italics. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in God.
For each time that our fears made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in God.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in God.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in God.
For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For losing sight of our unity. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive our
for those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of our separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Let us enter into a time of silent worship and reflection together. Amen. I invite you to rise and body your spirit for our second hymn, and the lyrics are the title of the hymn. So.
The lyrics are "Open My Heart." And if you do have one of the lyrics sheets, I'm going to start by singing the middle line, and you can join me then. Whenever I switch, you can stay on the original, or you can follow me to the lowest line. Your choice. And then when I switch again to the top line, the melody, you can follow me, or you can stay on that lowest line. Your choice. So. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart.
Good morning. Someone taller than me was up here. My name is Claudia Presley. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here at TVUUC. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday. For those of you that are new, Share the Plate Sundays happen once. Let me say that differently. Share the Plate Sundays happen 12 times a year. Each organization has 2 Sundays a month. So this month of September, the Share the Plate organization is the Highlander Center. What that means from an offering standpoint is that half of all contributions that come in today will be split between the Highlander Center and the General Operating Fund of TVUUC. The ways you can give are super easy. If you're here in the sanctuary, offering baskets will be passed. You can put in cash, you can put in checks. In our lobby, there is a giving kiosk that takes credit cards and debit cards. If you like to text, you can text the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount you would like to give. If you're watching online, there should also be a bar or a button that says Give Now. If you click on that, it should take you to a secure giving site. So once again, thanks for being here. Chris is going to come and tell us just a little bit about the Highlander Center. So please give generously. Thank you.
A lot of people don't know that just outside the city limits of Knoxville, there's a farm where Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks went to before there was a Montgomery bus boycott. And that's what the Highlander Center does, is take people who have concerns in their own community, have them sit in a circle and discuss with each other and come up with the solutions themselves. So it was the energy of those conversations that led to the civil rights movement, was instrumental in the labor movement and other social justice movements. Now it is very much involved in LGBTQIA issues, making sure people aren't bullied or oppressed for sexual orientation or gender identity. Also very much interested in helping communities organize around environmental racism, where the toxic substances are dumped in communities that are predominantly people of color. So it's a real opportunity to make a difference in the world. This morning, I'm going to be talking about forgiveness, but before we do that, we're going to talk about politics. According to Texas folklore, George Washington originally grew up in the Lone Star State. And one day, George's father was walking in the orchard and found a cherry tree had been chopped down, so he confronted his young son and said, "George, is it true that you chopped down the cherry tree?" And he said, "I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree." And his dad sighed and said, "Well, I guess that means we're going to need to move to Virginia, because if you cannot tell a lie, you'll never make it in Texas politics." Now, politics can get nasty in every state of the Union, and it's especially true when religion and politics get mixed together. In Tennessee, it sometimes feels like there's a two-step process to winning an election. The first step is to tell people that you honor the Lord your God, and the second step is to bear false witness against your neighbor. Seems to work every time. Now, Unitarians are not immune from this dynamic. One of the nastiest political campaigns happened in 1800. It's when Thomas Jefferson and John Adams ran for the presidency against each other, and both men were Unitarians. The campaign was full of slander and lies on both sides. The two men had been close friends, and yet after the campaign, they wouldn't even speak to each other. And John Adams wouldn't even attend Jefferson's inauguration. If bitterness and bad blood are a part of American politics, then two Unitarians are at least partially responsible. After the bitter, polarized contest, Jefferson and Adams did not talk for many years. They were thoroughly estranged. And then one day, John Adams picked up a pen and wrote Thomas Jefferson a letter in which he said, "You and I ought not to die before we have explained ourselves to each other." I tell that story because we're in the middle of the high holy days of the Jewish calendar, which is a time to seek and grant forgiveness and contemplate the possibilities of reconciliation. And John Adams sets a good example for how to do it. Think about our lives. Examine yourself and examine your own life, and I will do the same. And let's ask ourselves the question, is there anyone we need to write that sentence? You and I ought not to die before we have had a chance to explain ourselves to each other. Now, this year, the Unitarian Universalist Association is recommending a common read. It's a book called On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World. It's by Rabbi Danya Rutenberg, and it's a really great book. And in that book, the rabbi writes, "We all cause harm sometimes. Maybe it's intentional, a result of calculated attempt to gain power, or from a place of anger or spite. Maybe it's out of carelessness or ignorance, a reaction to fear, or because we are overwhelmed. Maybe it's because we were acting out of our broken places or trauma, or because in our attempt to protect our interest, we ran roughshod over others. Maybe it's because our smaller role in a larger system puts us in the position of perpetuating hurt and injustice. Maybe it's one or many of these things." Rabbi Rutenberg is right. Each one of us causes harm. We all do it. And each one of us needs to ask for forgiveness. When I was a hospital chaplain in Muncie, Indiana, I got a call. There was a man who was dying. He was in his last days, and his daughter had come to visit him, but he was refusing to see her, and so someone thought, let's call the chaplain. And so I went to visit the man, and mostly I listened. I listened to his story, and I listened to his concerns, and I helped him reflect on what his options were and just what pastoral care is, help people reflect spiritually and ethically. But in the end, he decided to not let her come into the room. And so one day he died, and his daughter mourned, and neither had the opportunity to explain themselves to each other. When I was minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg, the founder of that congregation came to me and wanted to help plan his memorial service. He found out he was dying. But here's the thing, he was estranged from the congregation. He hadn't been in the building in a long time. He had founded the church. He was credited in all the histories as having founded the church. And yet during the 1960s, there had been a big blow-up, a big argument about the civil rights movement. And get this is something Unitarians do very well. The argument wasn't whether you were for or against civil rights. Everybody was for civil rights. It was just everyone disagreed on how to be for civil rights. John Buren's a former president of the UUA, a former minister of this church, often says, "I'm no longer surprised when Unitarian Universalists shoot ourselves in the foot. I am surprised how quickly we reload." We have a talent for getting the good people, fights with good people on both sides. It's something we specialize in. Now, at the Unitarian Universalist Church here at the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, I forgot to mention, we did his memorial service. We did his memorial service in that sanctuary, but it was a circumstance where he died and the congregation mourned, but neither had had a chance to explain themselves to each other. Now, at the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, we don't fight over civil rights or human rights or women's rights or LGBTQIA rights. We have unity there. What we fight about is the welcome garden. At first, I found it puzzling that there would be so many polarized opinions about a garden, but then I remembered the book of Genesis, which seems to suggest that all our troubles began in a garden. After that, it all made sense. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to take on the persona of an announcer at a boxing match to try to succinctly state the nature of the conflict. In this corner, we have those who want the church to have curb appeal, who want people to be able to see our church sign and know when to turn off a busy street, who want people to be able to see our building with unobstructed views and thus advance the cause of Unitarian Universalism. And in this corner, we have those who feel that a manicured lawn requires regular mowing and thus adds to more fossil fuels burned and CO2 released into the atmosphere, speeding global warming, who want to see native plants that will serve as a breeding ground for endangered species and thus advance the cause of Unitarian Universalism. Of course, this is an oversimplification. There are micro issues and macro issues that are involved, and one of the real problems is having enough volunteers to pull off any vision for that space. The other thing, and I think this is one of the reasons good people get in conflict sometimes, are subjective opinions. For instance, whether something is beautiful or ugly is a subjective opinion. And it's hard to get people to change their opinion about whether something is beautiful or whether something is ugly. But before you choose sides in this conflict, I want to offer an alternative to polarization. Take a moment to contemplate that both sides want to advance the cause of Unitarian Universalism. Both sides love the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. Imagine there are alternatives to framing this as a contest between good and evil and right and wrong. Imagine if we took a moment before the conflict to explain ourselves to each other. Well, this is the goal of a new team established by the board to review the welcome garden, to see if we can get folks to listen to each other and be changed by that listening process so we can create a plan that allows our church to be an attractive, visible presence that is accessible and welcome to visitors, while also practicing environmental responsibility and nurturing a good ecosystem in a way that is sustainable ecologically and within the boundaries of our budget. This is our hope. Now, when God and Adam and Eve couldn't work things out, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, so we're hoping for a better result than that. That's our goal, something a little better than that. There's an article that's making its rounds on the internet written by a Presbyterian minister who's resigning from the ministry, and he said the beginning of his welcome call, the wake-up call, the beginning of his wake-up call was when he approached someone who was a member of his congregation who was a state senator and invited that state senator to join the board of the church, and the state senator said, "No, I could never do that. Church politics is too rough." But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I remember when I was a director of religious education back in the old building many years ago, and I was new at teaching adult education classes, and I offered a class called Writing Your Spiritual Autobiography, and 2 people signed up for that class who did not like each other and had a tradition of not getting along. One of the people was Jerry Silman. You may remember Jerry. Jerry, I often describe him as a 1950s humanist, mainly because his hairstyle had that kind of coiffure, and he had a pocket protector, and his inspiration sources were Isaac Asimov and Erich Fromm and Viktor Frankl. So in that corner, Jerry Silman. And the next corner was Dottie Burnham, who was, a nature-loving, goddess-worshiping feminist, very interested in feminist theology, and would love to have ritual and worship and dance and worship, and very interested in goddess worship. And her influences were Starhawk, Mary Daly, and Rosemary Radford Ruther. Now, these 2 didn't agree about much, and mostly when it was about ideas, they would butt heads. But that's not what the class was about. The class wasn't about ideas. It was about telling each other our stories. And once Jerry Silman had had a chance to tell his story about how he'd arrived at what he believed, and once Dottie was able to tell her story and tell the story of how she'd arrived at what she believed, they became friends. They became friends. There was a bond that was formed in that experience. And ever since that moment, I've known that's an important part of the mission of the church, is to give people an opportunity to explain ourselves to each other. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were friends and then enemies and then friends again. They exchanged so many letters in their old age that collections of them with commentary are over 600 pages. That's a lot of letters. And even though they were estranged during a big part of their lives, they were reconciled at the end and even died on the same day, July 4th, the 4th of July, 1826. Now, let me end this sermon by saying, if after the service you decide to go outside and you go to visit the welcome garden, you will notice a stump in the middle of the garden that has been a source of controversy. And what I want to say clearly is, I did not chop down that tree. Doris Gove tells me it's the stump of a big hackberry tree, not a cherry tree. Although I like to offer a different imaginative suggestion. What if that stump is the stump of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? And what if we were to resist the temptation to bite into that fruit that makes us want to turn every disagreement into an argument over right and wrong, good and evil, either or, my way or the highway? Theologians tell us that the Garden of Eden was that place of unity before there was any division. The oneness of humanity, the oneness of creation. And we may never get back to that garden. But if we work hard, we can create a community here at the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church where we all have a chance to explain ourselves to each other. And by so doing, we may just create a welcome garden. Amen. I invite you to join together in our closing hymn in the great hymnal 146, Soon the Day Will Arrive, Rise in Body or Spirit.
And if you feel inspired to dance, dance.
Burnham would be so happy right now, and Jerry Silman would forgive us. Prophetic Church, the world awaits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. Now join in our closing song.